Welcome to The Growth Switch, the podcast where we dive into the strategies, struggles, and breakthroughs of bold business leaders. I'm your host, Jules Fox, growth strategist and lead content creator at Aries Media. I'm here to uncover how today's top brands are scaling, overcoming challenges, and unlocking sustainable success. And we are lucky enough to have two wonderful guests with us. Alex Ham is the co-founder and CEO of Talent Compass, where she is reinventing RPO by connecting top-tier consulting talent with fast-growing companies through a data-driven, high-touch model. Stephanie Nero, PhD, is an academic turned recruiter and project manager at Talent Compass, where she helps high-growth companies scale smarter by pairing data-driven hiring with human-centered insight. Welcome to the podcast, ladies.
Thanks for having us, Jules.
Yeah, fantastic to have you here. Thank you. So Alex, actually the first question is directed at you. Why don't you walk me through the need that you saw in the market to open the type of agency that you have?
Yeah, definitely. So my business partner and I really started Talent Compass with the idea of bringing rigor, transparency, and scale to hiring in high growth environments. My business partner, Eli Castle, actually has her PhD in social psychology. And while we were both working in executive search, we noticed a consistent pattern. Our clients loved the structured and evidence-based approach that we were bringing to the C-level searches, but they also needed that same strategy applied across a broader organization. And at the time, she was actually working with our chairman, Tarki, to operationalize the frameworks in his book, Evidence-Based Recruiting. And so as they were developing those tools and systems to help companies hire more efficiently and more effectively, we decided to team up and spin out what eventually became Talent Compass, really helping companies understand how they can use data-backed recruiting methods in order to make faster, more efficient, smarter hires. We are deeply metrics driven in terms of what we do. We track conversion rates, A/B test messaging, and outreach methods, use that to optimize search strategies. Really, every single part of the funnel is measurable. And that's how it helped us improve outcomes consistently there. We often say that recruiting is where marketing was 20 or 30 years ago. Back then, people are launching campaigns without tracking engagement or conversion rates, going off of gut feeling, or now that would be a fireable offense. And so we, believe recruiting needs to be pushed in that same level of rigor with the measuring, optimizing, and rooting decisions based in real data.
Yeah, you can measure that gut feeling now. You can actually put some numbers behind it and show people the why.
Exactly. And I think, just habits in terms of people saying, I'll know it when I'll see it. When there is such a labor shortage in this country, especially when you're looking at skilled trades, construction, healthcare, that's not going to cut it anymore, right? We need to have a repeatable and scalable method in order to fill these positions.
Yeah. So why don't you walk me through that method, if you don't mind?
Yeah, definitely. In terms of how we approach recruiting, you can think of it very similar to a sales funnel, right? How many people are going to the top of the funnel and how do I get to my target number of hires? And so throughout our engagements with our clients, we like to measure every step of the way and really act like a true partner there. We embed ourselves within the team, to make lasting improvements, not just fill those seats. So from the top of the funnel, right, it could be saying, hey, I have a hypothesis that search strategy A and search strategy B are going to be the best fits. But also we have never looked at search strategy C in the past. So let's go down that. A tangible example for that would be a company that we were working with that was scaling their inside sales team. And they had traditionally only hired folks with an inside sales background, but were significantly behind on hiring targets. And we said, hey, well, why don't we look at outside sales as well? They could see benefits of, not being on the road or maybe having those leads fed to them. And they were a little resistant at first, but we actually were able to get the quota data from their existing hires and do an analysis there. And we found that outside sales reps were actually outperforming those with an inside sales background and staying longer. And so by having access to data and really being a true partner with our clients to say, hey, we want to help you do this better, we were able to, improve their recruiting results almost immediately.
Yeah. Wow. And that's just really capturing the tools that we have available to just become the best in your market and in your niche. So, Stephanie, what did you see that was different about Talent Compass that made you want to join with them?
My path to recruiting is slightly atypical in that, I have a background in academia, I have a PhD in history. And when I was first starting off of thinking about where I wanted to land post PhD, I knew knew I wanted to be in industry. I knew I wanted to be in a faster paced environment. And what really stuck out with me with Talent Compass in particular was that data-driven approach. So it's no surprise that someone who's a researcher is deeply embedded into, research methodologies and rigor. There are a lot of things about the way that Talent Compass was structured that appealed to me. And also being able to join a team that is women-led, that was also led by another PhD who's made that similar industry transition was deeply appealing to me in particular. I would say, from a high level, what I've noticed has really stuck out with our clients is that data-driven approach. Again, it seems like, when we're working with clients that there is that, well, I'll know it when I see it, like Alex said. And our ability to quantify that and to provide metrics to help drive forward a process that is typically so amorphous and opaque and be able to give that a little bit of clarity and structure has resulted in clients that we've had for several years and clients who are continuing to grow with us. And it's been a real joy to be able to be part of that and be part of that thought partnership as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, given the ability of the company to do what you do, which is something pretty fantastic, how do you pivot for times in which hiring is difficult? Because it looks like right now the U.S. job market is in a tricky situation with the tariffs and everything. So what are some ways that you can overcome speed bumps like that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. But, I think early 2030, we're expected to have nearly a 5 million, worker shortage due to just demographic shifts, retirement, availability of talent in general. And so they're just becoming harder to reach and less responsive when you're speaking about candidates, right? Even behaviors like ghosting interviews or switching jobs quickly. Hiring has definitely become, a full-time job, right? If someone has their main responsibilities and also need to build a team, it's just something that you won't be able to handle on a daily basis. And so the way we do it is thinking through, you know, those conversion rates, right? And what levers do we actually have control of? Is it, hey, we need to build an internal referral program because those folks tend to be better hires in terms of both tenure and then also having the right skill set available? Is it we need to think through what training programs can we put in place? If you're looking for someone who has that leadership experience and more of the soft skills, what hard skills can we balance that with that can be taught on the job? And so really helping our clients think through each step of the process in terms of not only who they're looking for and how they're going to do it is, kind of how we approach it. We're not a quick fix, right? We're builders here. We really want to help our clients. We always say we want to leave it better than we found it. And whether that's either, fixing hiring manager habits, having faster funnel conversions, or just implementing better tools in order to make these hires, our job isn't done until there is that lasting improvement.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a much more comprehensive solution because you are helping them along the entire journey versus just with one particular situation. It's more transformational than it is transactional.
We really see ourselves as an extension of our clients' teams. Yes, we work on the recruiting process and are the experts in that space, but they are the experts in their business, right? And so we really need that partnership to work in order for us to have the results that we've been able to achieve so far. Stephanie, as a project manager who is day in and day out talking with clients, talking with candidates, probably can speak to that a bit more as well.
Absolutely. And for instance, one of my longer term clients, I believe when we had first engaged them, they're hiring for an outside sales team would take upwards of 6 months. We've been able to help build out and scale up their entire outside sales team throughout North America. And we've gotten that down to a shortest time of about 2 to 4 weeks to hire. And part of that is because we've been able to integrate into their team and really adopt and understand not only, who are they looking for in terms of talent, but also what are their growth trajectories for the company and how does this salesperson in this particular territory contribute to that larger piece and that larger target. So it's not just about a transactional, like here's a person, here's a resume, here's their phone number, take it away. It's what can we do to help find the right talent that's going to help you achieve that next step or even the next step after that, and building out that longer term team. And one of the points that we talked about too is, also thinking about the organization as a whole and the administrative burden that are placed on hiring managers to help build out and scale these teams. I think almost 70%, in a recent study I found that 70% of HR leaders are reporting difficulty in recruiting because of the full-time nature that is required to really, put in the effort needed to find the talent that can help a company scale and grow. And that's where an RPO like Talent Compass can fit in. We can alleviate that administrative burden, take that off. So internal teams can actually focus on the business building activities that they need to kind of link those things together and grow the company overall.
Yeah. Yeah, taking somebody's time away from their own job is one of the hardest parts of hiring. And so it's not that just that you're delivering candidates, these qualified candidates to people, you're also delivering them more peace of mind. You're delivering them more bandwidth to free them up from the tasks they actually need to be doing.
Exactly. We are stepping in every, you know, piece of the process from developing search strategies. Let's help develop the interview process together so we can make sure, it's comprehensive but not taxing on, individuals' time. It's managing candidates through that process and all the way through offer, while kind of consistently tracking these analytics to say, hey, here's a major bottleneck. How can we work together to solve that? I think particularly at a time as well, right, when if you make a bad hire and someone leaves within the first couple of months or doesn't work out, on average, they quantify that as 6 to 9 months of salary in addition to what you paid for that candidate. So there's a real monetary component to this as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that cost can actually be measured. And I'm sure that that's something that you actually deliver to the clients as well, is about the cost savings.
Exactly. If you think about kind of all of the different components, Stephanie was talking about outside sales reps, for example, right? If you leave one of those territories open for 6 months, imagine, the quota that's being missed there, right? That could be upwards of, I think for that particular client, right, Stephanie, $1 million per year, maybe a little bit more.
At least, depending on the territory, it could be anywhere between 600,000 at the low end to 1.5 to $2 million in lost revenue.
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah. So, it sounds like with what you're saying, as far as this holistic process and as far as looking forward even to 2030, you were mentioning that there's going to be a huge shortage of skilled talent. How is it that you think along the future? It's not just delivering this solution that's perfect for right now, but helping a company with their own future as well. How is it that you deliver these future solutions?
Yeah, definitely. I think, that's where you really get into, right? Recruiting is no longer just operational. It is a strategic solution. And like any strategic solution, it does need to be data backed, measurable, and then optimizing over time. And part of that is thinking through, what are our hiring needs today? And what does that look like in 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? And I think that's where, Stephanie was getting out with also thinking through how does a new hire fit into that? If I'm growing my team, right? What skill sets do I need to hire for today? And what does that potential look like over time? And so if we need to have this person in a managerial role in 3 years, okay, well, looking at your workforce, how many folks actually make it to that next step? What does a tenure look like? So maybe it's not saying, hey, I need to only hire one today. Maybe you need to be hiring 3 this year in order to fill that slot, a year, 3, 5 years from now, and understanding how does that affect your recruiting funnel? Where are these folks getting the experience for the skill sets they need? And also what diversity of, experience should we be looking at rather than, hiring someone who maybe has the exact experience you're looking for now, but maybe doesn't have the potential to get to that next step or the exposure.
And if I can add to, I think where we found a lot of success is helping our clients be proactive instead of reactive about hiring. For instance, Alex was talking about, how we can help identify talent today that can grow into talent in 3 years down the line. And I actually have a client currently, again, another long-term client. We've helped to build out various arms of their commercial organization, but right now we're hiring a marketing leader for them. And one of the directives that we've been given from them is, I want to overhire. We're a manager level role, but we want someone who has potential to grow into a director in the next 2 to 3 years, because that's going to hit our 5-year growth plan. It's a 100-year-old manufacturing company, really steady, but they're looking to the future. And they see this role as critical to being able to achieve that next 5-year benchmark that they're looking for down the line. And so I think too, with thinking about data-driven approaches is, again, thinking forward thinking and helping to really integrate into a company and figuring out how can we give them the talent that can grow and develop. And that's going to be, that has been actually a huge bottleneck that we're seeing across the board in terms of the market, is that you might have talent right now, but there may be, a skill shortage. Maybe they check 90% of the boxes, but we're always aiming for that bullseye of 100. But how can we prioritize that 90%? and where can we grow that extra 10% so someone can grow within an organization and create a longer term hire. Hiring managers don't have to do this in the next couple of years. So again, thinking proactively, long term about not only hiring needs, but projecting into the future about how we can also anticipate what is to come.
Yeah.
I think that's where our executive search background as a firm also comes into play, right? Oftentimes you're out having these conversations with, hiring managers looking at an associate or someone who's on the, manufacturing plant floor, but they are questions that need to be asked if you're going to make that right hire.
Yeah. And it sounds like as a service-based company, that sounds incredibly helpful. It sounds like with the right company and with the right people who recognize what you have to offer, that's something that they're just going to find ridiculously valuable.
We really want to, be working with companies who are excited about pushing their recruiting process to the next step. Always interested in kind of that curiosity of what else is out there and how can we be taking those next steps to be, a top tier employer and attracting top tier talent.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not everybody wants the best quality. Just look around the market at any other product. You're going to have a bell curve of people who are simply looking for the best and people who aren't. And that's on them, really. So how do you ask for help in your business? In other words, how are you able to outsource some of the many tasks that you need to do to other businesses in order to help grow your company?
I think this is something we've been exploring a lot lately. Nearly doubled the size of our team actually in the last year or so. And, realizing we need to be using tools in a most smarter way and, with outside partners. So for example, on the business development side of things, we're working with the Ariz team to help grow our marketing, efforts. We are very much so the experts in terms of we know how to optimize your search engine marketing and getting into, a broader visibility, if you will. And that's not, a skill set we have internally. And so it's been great to lean on them for not only kind of direct marketing efforts, but also ideas in terms of how to grow the business. On the operational side of things, we're starting to look into AI interviewing, and interviewing is a strong word. It's more of a screening tool just to make sure that things like table stakes, compensation, et cetera, are a good fit. But that also allows candidates to get started and, on their time, right? Oftentimes you have folks that are out in the field and, normal business hours aren't the best time for them to be interviewing. With, a tool like that, we're able to, have them submit something at 11 p.m. if they want and have someone, review it the next day. And I don't know, Stephanie, you have been exploring quite a few tools for us as well. I know what else you would add there.
Yeah. And, I think automation and AI are definitely buzzwords, but they're definitely recruiting trends that are going to see not only throughout 2025, but also beyond. In addition to automating the interview process. And again, I think there's only so much of the human element you can remove from human resources, but seeing how we can be strategic about how we use some like an AI interviewing tool to gather table stakes information. We're also exploring how to automate outreach as well. So again, if our team has, inbound trackers or inbound leads from a partner organization, how can we automate that process? So as soon as someone submits an interest form, they're getting automatic leads and scheduling follow-ups too. That could be, specific to industry. Certain industries and certain candidate pools are going to be more receptive to those things. And where we step in as Talent Compass in our data-driven approach is measuring. All right, so for an AI tool, that's going to work well for instance, engineers, but it probably won't work quite as well for tradespeople. So how can we figure out different tools and building blocks and essentially scaffold together something that is, I guess, bespoke to our clients' needs, but that we have, an arsenal and a toolbox of ready-made, build as you go options for our clients that are best suited to their needs.
Yeah. Meeting your clients where they are for the specific thing that they need. And then it sounds like also going above and beyond that.
Exactly. We are very much not a Band-Aid solution, right? We want to be comprehensive and individualized to each of our clients, understanding specifically what are their pain points, how can we address those? And then once we have that figured out, right, what are the other levers we can pull to take it to the next level?
So knowing all of this, and having this vision for the future, how do you think you could 2x or even 5x or even 10x your growth over the next few years? What are some strategies that you might consider?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one is just the efficiencies. We, as Stephanie mentioned, I think you can't fully take the human intervention out of recruiting. There are definitely, biases, of course, within these AI tools, but figuring out what are the activities that can be automated and how do we allow our team and project managers to focus on the more strategic issues. I think that's going to be, a major part of that, in addition to working with clients that are scaling as well. So, we have really started to look at multi-site organizations as an area where we can provide particular assistance, particularly in the healthcare and manufacturing spaces, which are continuing to grow and need help recruiting. So I think focusing on those organizations where we can have those multi-year relationships and really push things forward, is an area we see a specific opportunity moving forward, and also allowing our teams to, get exposure to different types of positions and also more opportunities to find unique solutions. I think that's the fun part for us.
Yeah. And it sounds like there's a duality there. It needs to grow internally and externally at the same time. There needs to be the right client matches for your team, but then your team also needs to grow to continue to provide that critical human element that goes along with it.
Exactly. It's part of our ethos is making sure our clients feel that white glove service, if you will. So every account has, one project manager who's paired with them, who is their day in and day out contact. We're kind of in constant communication, not only through weekly meetings, but, texting if there's any issues with candidates. Hey, we have a need. Can you hop on the phone for 30 minutes and talk immediately? Like I said, we want to be part of their team. Maybe that's meeting them on Slack or Teams just for that quick ping. And so we do need to continue to grow our team, of course, to match those needs and make sure that there's that level of accessibility to be successful there.
So that white glove service also extends to our candidate management. And it's not also just up towards our clients, but also to the candidates that we engage for our clients. We had a client recently who gave us some really wonderful feedback on this. They had engaged a candidate, went through several rounds of interviews. Ultimately, they decided that they were not a great fit, wonderful person. But part of that white glove service is also us delivering some of that unfortunate news to candidates. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people who've been throughout interview processes where they were also ghosted from hiring managers, or maybe they didn't hear back a recruiting decision or hiring decision within a time, a reasonable time frame. That is not what we do here at Talent Compass. If anything, we're actually over communicative. And so in this particular instance, I had to deliver the unfortunate news that the client decided not to move forward with the candidate. But again, did so in a way of thinking about, if I was that person, how would I like to receive that news? And really thinking about, their feelings. Well, that candidate, upon receiving our email, actually reached back out to the hiring manager, our client, to say thank you so much, and also gave wonderful feedback on Talent Compass. And our client in our next touch point said, you know what, I have to give it to Talent Compass. You clearly treat these people and treat these candidates not just as transactional pegs to slot in, but as human beings. And it does a lot for your business. And she's like, it also does a lot for ours. And I think that's one thing that hiring managers oftentimes don't understand or maybe fully comprehend, is that, a negative candidate experience, even if they don't end up becoming hired, or if they're not hired by the team, can result in negative feedback for the business, Glassdoor, Google reviews, and things like that. So, being really mindful about the totality of not only our business, but how we are also an extension of our client's business has also been another aspect of that as well.
Yeah, I think empathy is a really key tool to have, especially as all of these AI and AI agent tools develop. That's one of the biggest parts of being human, is the ability to have empathy that really separates us from AI for the moment.
And I mean, everyone's gotten that automated email, right? Like, wasn't a fit, sorry. And that never feels good. And, it definitely closes the door in the future when we are in a situation where it's hard to hire, it's competitive. You want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward consistently, and that your reputation, aligns with also the values of your business. And I think, Stephanie and our project managers exemplify that every day.
Yeah. And, I think that goes back to the timeline of, if you're looking at the timeline of these companies, that candidate might not have been a good fit right now, but maybe they go off for a few years, continue to develop their training, and really get the skill set that they need, along with the qualities that the hiring manager originally did like. And they do end up hiring that person somewhere down the road.
Exactly. And we see stories of that every single day, especially if they've handled the process with grace and connected with the hiring manager. It might be even feedback that's like, hey, we really enjoyed our conversations with you. You're a great cultural fit. I need you to go lead a team for the next 3 years, and then please come back and talk to us. I think that's consistently feedback we get from, clients as well, as, hey, let's keep track of that person. They could definitely be a fit in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just quickly going back to that duality of, as you're growing your company, making sure that you have the right people, but then you have the right clients. What has been your experience working with Ari's Media to help you get those clients and help acquire new clients?
Yeah, so we definitely have seen huge increases in visits to our website and getting our visibility out there. The team at ours has been amazing in terms of helping us even expand our thinking on how do we find these clients. Of course, I had never 2 years ago thought about how is search engine marketing going to help with a very specialized RPO firm, and they were able to show us, I think, through their very data driven approach as well, which we of course appreciate. How do we do that? And kind of consistently meeting us weekly to say, hey, we have new ideas for keywords. Here's other platforms we should be advertising on. Here's how they're increasing conversion rates. Maybe it's let's look at like a different lead magnet. How fast are we getting back to these folks? All of the things we think through on the candidate side. We are not experts in marketing, but the team there has been able to give us huge insights on how can we grow our digital presence and make that into something meaningful for our business and for our growth. Stephanie's also been working very closely there, so I'm not sure if you had anything you wanted to add.
I also appreciate how Ariz has managed us too. And that's one of the great joys of client services, as Alex and I know. And so they've also been very flexible in, meeting us where we thrive and on the platforms that we thrive to push that process forward, whether it's, sending follow-ups, we're in a Teams organization, so switching to that. And those are seemingly minor things, but they make a huge difference. And on our, Talent Compass's side is something that we offer for our clients. And I think our clients appreciate that. And then being on the receiving end there, we appreciate the flexibility that the team has given us as well.
Yeah. And I think something that your company really shows is that there's no one right way to do something, but you can always do something better.
Exactly. We're always striving to take it to the next level, right? Which the Aries team has been hugely helpful in.
Yeah. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with both of you. Thank you so much for your time and insight. And I'm just so excited to share this with our audience.
It's great chatting with you, Jules. Thank you for the wonderful conversation.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Thank you, Stephanie. Have a wonderful day.
Okay.
Thanks.